Sanders, you and I, sir, are in the same boat. See, I didn't come to Garner to start this school. It was just as big of a surprise to me as Mr. Barber leaving Garner Consolidated was to you. But when Garner Consolidated asked you to be the new school principal, you agreed, just as I agreed to start this new school.
That surprises me, Mr. Bear. I thought the plan must have been for you to be at Garner High for a year and then move on to the new school.
If that was the plan, nobody told me. You see, I came to Garner in 1967 when I interviewed, and I interviewed with the Wake County School Superintendent, a Wake School Board member, and a 7-member Garner School Advisory. Now, Mr. Sanders, not a one of them mentioned anything about a new school being built. In fact, I didn't know about the new school until January, and here it is March, and I'm learning that I'm the new school principal. Mr. Sanders, I need you to help me open this school. We have less than 6 months to assemble a faculty and staff and reassure and comfort the student body and open the school itself. But you know, I think the biggest task weighing here is this community. As you know, tensions have been high. We got work to do.
I personally am sick and tired of the federal government telling us what to do with our own schools. I mean, what about our right to run our schools as we see fit?
Madam, that states' right question was settled when Mr. Lee handed his sword to Mr. Grant.
Well, then we just won't take any federal money then. We'll run our schools as we see fit, and we'll tell HEW here to butt out.
That would require a property tax increase of 31 cents on every $100 evaluation. In other words, the taxes on a $40,000 house would go up by $124. And for nothing, the Supreme Court has ruled that integrated schools are the law of the land, regardless of federal funding.
Look, all HEW cares about is colors. What about, I'm much more concerned about the education of our children.
All of our children.
Look, someone needs to express the integration of schools from the white perspective.
That has been done, repeatedly, and on behalf of the federal government, we have heard enough. Wake County implemented a freedom of choice plan to aid school integration in 1965, and it was a flawed plan. We at the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare are not impressed.
The feds are just biased against us.
In 1966, 93 out of 7,800 colored students in the Wake County system attended schools where they were in the minority. To comply with HEW guidelines, it would have to be between 900 and 1,000.
Look, we can't make them go to white schools. We're colorblind when it comes to our children.
26 of your predominantly white schools have 2 or less minority teachers. 4 schools have no minority teachers. You are maintaining a dual bus system. Wake County is non-compliant in faculty desegregation, student desegregation, busing, maintenance of inadequate schools, and you have offered no assurance of attempts to comply with the constitutional requirement to eliminate the dual school system.
Doesn't anybody here understand? No white person is going to send their child to an integrated school.
And what about us? Look at everything we must give up going to school with you. We lose our culture, our leaders, our teachers, and our heritage. And for what? This thing? No, separate but equal.
The courts have ruled that separate is, by its very nature, unequal.
It would be safe and comfortable for us to stay in our own schools, but change must come, or else this country is going to be ripped apart.
Is that a threat? We'll call out the National Guard.
No threat, but this country was founded on justice. Can't you see the dream, the vision, and change must begin with our children?
Why them?
Because some of us have seen way too much.
Like what?
Like when I got on the bus to go to my job at Montgomery Ward, they told me to go sit on the back bench. That's where the Negroes sit. And if all the Negro seats are filled, we have to stand up.
The back of the bus gets to the same place the front of the bus does.
Maybe so. But 2 water fountains, the worst licking I ever got came at a water fountain. Mama took us into Raleigh, and I drunk well water all my life, so I knew it had an odor to it. So when I got to Raleigh and saw those 2 water fountains, I took a drink of that water out of that white fountain, even though Mama told me not to. But when I did that, she gave me the worst licking I ever got.
None of this has anything to do with our schools here in Garner.
Maybe not. But things weren't much better here in Garner. I was riding with some of my friends. We were going into Raleigh, and we pulled into the parking lot of a restaurant down the road, just by a big oak tree. We weren't even gonna get out. We were just gonna wait for some of our friends. That restaurant owner came running out of that store, screaming at us, shouting, "Keep going, you Nick!" You know what he called us. And so after that, I told my children change was coming and it was going to be difficult, but we were going to support it. Now, my children might not have had what some of the other children had, but their jeans were clean and they were going to be going to school and they were going to brush their teeth and comb their hair. I taught them to respect everybody, the teachers and themselves. And I told my children, you're going to be bathing every day because ain't nobody going to be calling you stinking. And you know that some folks would have.
Still don't see what this has to do with our schools here in Garner.
I don't understand what she's talking about.
Do you have anything to say? Anything about your, I don't know, your experiences?
Well, I got a lot to say.
Well, then speak up.
See, you don't understand, because true change will come with a change of, because true change will come with a change of the heart, not the change of the walls. You see the all-black Lincoln High and the white Chapel High merged with a name only, a new building. But they kept the same name of the white school, Chapel High. They kept the same white principal, too. They kept the same school mascot, the same school colors, and the same school, and the same yearbook name. Most of the faculty came from Chapel High. The Lincoln head coach was now assistant coaches.
Well, at least they had jobs.
What did you say? All the football trophies that Lincoln had were thrown away. Trash like lit them on the band trophies. Things that we took pride in were found along the side of a dumpster with the cafeteria trash. And not only that, as I personally walked inside of that hallway, I personally saw how Chapel High's trophies were moved to a new trophy case. And it did not help that most of the staff here at the new school promoted the democratic process, a majority rule. Any controversy? Let's have a vote.
It was a great demonstration of how not to integrate. So Garner knew what not to do. But how should we integrate?
I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I'll tell you why I asked you to meet me here at the school. I'm doing some research, and you folks were part of one of the most important events in Garner history. Some people say that the integration of the Garner schools was Garner's finest hour. I want to tell your story. I want to tell the story of how this integration happened, but I need your help. I need your memories.
You know, it feels like 1967 again. The headlines of 6/8 could have been written last week.
You know, when I think about 1968, I think about the space program. You know, I was glued to that TV set, saw all them photographs coming in. I saw that little blue dot, and that was the home of all humanity.
Well, now some people, now my grandma included, God rest her soul, she could not believe that we were trying to put a man on the moon. She thought it was all a hoax, as some people would tweet nowadays, fake news. Oh, yeah. Now, but imagine this. Now, she was alive when the Wright brothers first took flight. And she's alive when we're talking about putting men on the moon. I mean, the world she knew was just disappearing.
That's right. You know, even the space race was colored by fear. We thought we had to beat the Russians to the moon.
Now, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. They didn't want any Russians on the moon. Can you imagine the moon filled with communists?
You know, I think of 68, I think of protest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Civil rights, women's rights, anti-war. I mean, it was almost like we were raised just to protest.
You know, I've thought about that. But we grew up watching images of the Holocaust. How could people let such things happen? How could there be so much evil and people not take to the streets to stop it? We were a generation that was not going to stand idly when we saw injustice.
You know, there was student unrest all over the country in '68. The students at Columbia University shut down their school. It were protest marches sit-in across the country, and they encouraged other high school students to do the same thing.
And with all of this conflict going on all over the country in 1968, your community is called upon to merge two high schools of different races. No community in the country did a better job of that than here in Garner. At least that's what some of the experts say that I've been researching. Did you know that the Garner merger has been studied by experts all over the country?
I had no idea.
According to my research so far, a lot of the credit goes to a man named H. Wayne Bear. He was the first principal he was the principal at Garner High when he was named as the principal of this new school that was going to be combined. Now, one teacher I spoke to described Mr. Bear as unruffled as his flat-top hair. He's been described as calm, decisive, and reassuring. He'd come from Winston-Salem, where he had overseen the merger of a small county school with a large city school. It appears that the lessons he learned in that process were applied very well here in Garner.
We need to come out from behind these walls. We'll start here, fresh. There will be no black children, no white children, just our children. You know, before I came to Garner, I was in the administration in a little town in Forsyth County that was about to merge with one of the larger schools. I saw firsthand what it was like for one of those small schools to be gobbled up by one of the larger ones. I knew the fears of the teachers and the staff and the students in the community. We'd be stepchildren. It wouldn't be our school. But in Garner, we're going to start anew. The walls of the past are coming down. And the walls that we erect, they'll create a haven. Mr. Sanders, we cannot correct the wrongs of this world, but we can create a place where everyone feels safe, where everyone believes that this is our school, and where all of Garner is proud of Garner Senior High School.
I tell you what, I always thought God had a hand in our integration. We prayed at church for our schools. We prayed that the Lord would send us the right man we needed. Now, most of us read the same Bible and proclaimed the love of all mankind that Jesus taught. We prayed the Lord would send us just the man we needed. And you know what? The Lord sent us H. Wayne Bear. Praise God.
Now, Mr. Bear said that everything had to start with the class of 1968. Now, those seniors would not be part of the consolidated school, but Mr. Bear said that they had to help set the tone of the discussion. Do any of you remember anything specifically about that class of '68?
That we were so naive. Now, you know, we knew integration was coming. We knew there was going to be some changes. But what we were more concerned about, losing our school colors. I mean, why couldn't it stay blue and white? I mean, most of the people were coming from Garner High.
And the Rams.
The Rams, yeah.
Garner had always been the Rams, and now because of integration, we couldn't be the Rams anymore.
No.
It didn't seem fair, and I remember thinking, why can't we have a vote?
But you know, a lot of people from Garner Consolidated didn't want to merge. You know, you have to remember, we were a union school.
That's right.
A lot of the students went there from the 1st to the 12th grade. You know, as I think, we had and we still have a family bond. You know, we were community.
So I guess you were kind of sad about it.
You talking about sad? Man, it was like a family splitting us. We loved our teachers, our principals, and our leadership. But our leadership saw a change in a different way, a way that still brings us pride.
On February 8 of 1968, the Garner School Advisory Board told Wake County Schools that the Garner Board would support integration in grades 1 to 12 to the fullest extent. At a public hearing just 3 weeks later, not a single comment was made opposing integration. By early March, the Wake School Board passed a resolution to fully integrate the new Garner Senior High. Now, at that time, 1968, when all this is happening, these decisions are being made, people are at home watching their televisions and the protests, everything that's going on, this was going to be tough. What were the people in Garner thinking at that time?
All I can remember is that we felt safe at Garner Consolidated. It was like a second home. The faculty and the staff, they understood growing up in our community. Principal C.J. Barber and all the teachers, they were respected in our community. We had history, stories, and a genuine love for one another. Of course, some of the students came from troubled homes, but the teachers didn't stop instructing. They instructed us, and they parented us.
Sure did.
They gave us discipline and love.
Sure did.
And I tell you what I wondered. I wondered, would the white teachers really feel that way about us? Or would all of that disappear?
Well, there was a lot of concern also among the white parents. Now, they were concerned because their children playing in the gymnasiums where their fathers had played. And the boys out there in the field playing baseball where countless number of the boys had grown up. I mean, we had our roots too. But where would our young people be now without roots?
Mr. Baer said, the walls that separate us will come down, but we have to keep the foundations of the past. The love, the history of community, the roots. We have to assemble the very best staff we possibly can to achieve all of that, and we have to prepare our students for change. Now, to help prepare for that change, he arranged for an exchange. Some of the students from Garner High went to Consolidated for a day, and some of the students from Consolidated went to Garner High as guests. Do any of you remember that program or how it went?
Yeah, I did. Mostly I remember when I visited sticking out like a sore thumb. I wasn't used to being in the minority. I was different. I felt like everybody was watching me and disapproving. But what happened later was horrible. When some people found out that I had visited Consolidated as part of the ambassadors, they called my home. They called me a Negro lover. They said I should be ashamed, that I was a disgrace. They said so many vulgar things that finally my father forbade me from answering the phone. I had never known there was such hatred.
Seriously?
And there was fear. I was going to go deliver senior barbecue plates with some friends, including a black friend that was attending Garner High as part of the Freedom of Choice plan. Mr. Baer called me into his office to let me know that the black students had been dismissed to go home to be with their parents. Dr. Martin Luther King had been assassinated.
I remember that day. Nobody knew what was going to happen.
And we still delivered those plates up near Shaw University. And I remember marchers coming right down the street. I had never been so scared. Nothing happened. I mean, they banged on the car as they went by, but I wondered, is this what integration is going to be like? Constant fear, terror?
Mr. Baer's first hire was a great one. He asked Mr. Ernest Sanders, the acting principal at Garner Consolidated, to come to the new school as an assistant principal and as a physics teacher.
Oh, Mr. Sanders, have a seat. Mr. Sanders, we have a lot of work left to do to reassure this community that integration is a good thing. Not only is it inevitable, but it is a good thing. Mr. Sanders, I cannot stress this to you enough. I have to have you as the assistant principal. I plan to give you a lot of responsibility if you'll accept it.
I've thought about it, and I prayed over it. Mr. Bear, I would join you. I think it would be a good thing for our kids to see a good face near the principal's office. What can I do for you now?
Well, first off, we need help assembling the faculty and staff. Every teacher is to be chosen based on merit. I think our top priority should be teachers who have experience teaching juniors and seniors. We want the very best teachers of 11th and 12th graders from each school.
I see a problem with the guidance counselors. Wake County has only approved one. Mrs. Toole is the most important person in our school. She is the one person who make our school work. I think she would be needed for the seniors at Garner Consolidated.
Well, Betty Knox has already agreed to come over and be our counselor, and I feel like she is crucial for our seniors in choosing their college choices. However, I agree with you that Miss Toole is critical. Our students need someone that they can trust, someone they're comfortable with. We'll find the money for 2 counselors.
What are you going to do about the coaches, Mr. Bear? Both schools have good athletic tradition and good support.
All the coaches will be chosen based on merit.
You'll need Cheryl Johnson for football. We don't have much football tradition. Now, boys basketball, that's not so easy. I've heard that J.C. O'Neill has done a fine job at Garner High, and James Farish has done a good job as well for the most part. Now, I've asked James to stop by. James, Mr. Bear, I've told him that you were a great basketball coach, and that you sometimes lose your cool. I've also told him that you have done some things that embarrassed us. Now, I hope that you have worked through that. Now, Mr. Bear here has a big decision to make. I'll leave so you two can talk.
Have a seat.
Mr. Bear never asked Mr. Ferris about the embarrassing things, but the two did spend quite a lot of time together over the next couple of months talking about the new school. Most of the teaching positions were easy to fill, but the boys' basketball coaching job, there was no answer that would make everyone happy. That job was a powder keg.
Ferris, would you consider sharing the head boys basketball coaching position with Coach O'Neill?
That wouldn't work. I don't know him, and he doesn't know me. Starting a new school with 2 head coaches isn't what we should do. I wouldn't do that to the players, you know, it just wouldn't work.
I didn't think it would either. Well, I see here that you have some experience coaching baseball over at Garner Consolidated. Is that something you consider doing over here at Garner? Garner has a strong baseball tradition, and we should be good next season. And you can be the assistant in basketball.
I hate baseball. I'm the baseball coach at Garner Consolidated only because the athletic director couldn't find anyone else to coach it.
But, Mr. Ferris, you're the athletic director.
That's right. And I had to be an assistant in football, too. And I hate football.
Well, then why did you start the program?
Well, there was some interest in us having a football team, and NC State had given us some equipment to try to start a program, but we don't have much experience in football. Now, Cheryl Johnson is the man you want. I am a basketball coach and a social studies teacher.
Well, what about the AD job?
Well, that would be all right, but the other school had a lot more sports than we did. And really, I'm a basketball coach and a social studies teacher.
Mr. Ferris, I'm not naive. I realize how controversial this decision is. There will be unhappy people. I mean, you realize what a big decision this is for me, right? Can you imagine what would happen if I named you the head boys basketball coach?
I can, and I'm sure you realize what happens if you don't. Listen, I'm a basketball coach and a social studies teacher. I've had one team win a state championship, and we've been to the state finals 3 times. Now, that ought to count for something, but I trust you'll make the right decision.
I appreciate you coming by.
Yes, sir.
In picking Mr. Ferris, Mr. Bear sent a message that resonated. You see, he and J.C. O'Neill were friends. They were in the same Sunday school class at First Baptist Church. And he knew that O'Neill was an outstanding coach. But he also believed that based on merit and longevity, that Mr. Ferris deserved the job. Later, when Ferris was talking with some of his colleagues at Garner Consolidated, he mentioned that in all of their discussions, race was never mentioned. It was never about a black coach with white players or a white coach with black players. The truth is, there were two schools, two very different schools, and there was going to be a merger. No one knew exactly how the students would react to the change.
At Garner Consolidated, we had assemblies about what it would be like to be at a white school. And that's what some people called it. What's a white school? I remember our teachers telling the students, we had to be better. We had to be better to be considered equal.
Well, I remember after all the angst and complaining about the school colors and the mascots all kind of dissipated, they appointed a committee. I cannot remember who in the world was on the committee at the time, but they decided to go with blue for the blue and white of Garner High, and they decided to go with gold for the burgundy and gold of Garner Consolidated. Now, the mascots, that was a different situation altogether. They decided to throw out the Rams and throw out the Tigers right off, and the committee decided to go with a cougar, and that was quickly overturned by Mr. Bear the following morning. Somebody said he received a phone call that night that said a cougar was nothing more than a tiger that had lost its stripes. And in that person's opinion, that we were just accepting the Garner Consolidated mascot.
You know, I don't know exactly how we got to be the Trojans, but I do remember sitting in the meeting and we rejected a lot of mascots. Like right away we ejected all the insects. I mean, who wants to be a mosquito? And then we got rid of all the meat-eating animals. We got rid of them. We got rid of the plant eaters, no plant eaters. And then we got rid of the reptiles. And then what's those amphibious animals? You know, the ones that go both ways. We got rid of them right away. And then we got rid of all the professional mascots.
Well, had I known that school was going to come equipped with a billy goat right next door in that neighboring field, we could have called ourselves the Garner Goats.
You remember the purple goat, the dance place up at the Forest Hill Shopping Center?
But anyway, somebody suggested the Trojans. You know, O.J. Simpson. We never before all that other stuff. And then, you know, USC football was doing real good. And I remember I was in English class and we learned about the Trojan horse and Greek mythology.
Well, my friend, I've heard a different story. It seems like one of these mean fellers were kind of fed up with all the talk of the colors and the mascots, and he was on his way home looking in his wallet to see if he had enough change to buy himself a Pepsi-Cola. And there it was, the inspiration, or maybe I should say the impression of a Trojan.
What? Are you serious?
And that, my friend, is how we became the Trojans. Wikipedia.
Yeah, Wikipedia.
What are you going to do about the cheerleaders, Mr. Bear? Only 2 of our girls made the team.
I was afraid of that. You see, we have 2 very different styles. Garner Consolidated did a lot more chanting, a lot more stomping.
But that's our tradition.
But not at Garner High School. Mr. Ferris, Mr. Sanders, I really feel like we should lean one way or the other on this, and I really think we should go towards the national trend of athleticism. We'll have tryouts, and every person who tries out will be given a score, and the highest scorers will be on the team.
How about football? Are you sure you want Coach Johnson to take the boys to Camp Durant for training? The boys really don't know each other yet. They just don't know each other. Maybe we're trying to do too much too fast. with all the hitting that goes on with football, it might turn into a difficult situation.
I realize that, but I must trust Coach Johnson with this. Hopefully when the boys get back, they'll be closer because of it. You know our boys. All of our boys have been working in the fields together for years. They just haven't played much together or gone to school together. I really think a few days away at camp could do wonders for bringing this school closer. You know, as well as I do, sometimes being worked to exhaustion has a good way of equalizing things.
Well, that was the plan, but there was a tradition that had the potential to tear the team, perhaps the entire school, apart. It was a tradition that should have been stopped long before and eventually was. Today, it is called hazing, and it is a felony in North Carolina. The coaches may go to jail, and the team would be disbanded. But in 1968, it was a tradition that a lot of players didn't think much about. But it was also a tradition that the Garner Consolidated players knew nothing about until their new teammates came to their cabins that night at Camp Durant.
Ladies, I wonder if you'd excuse us for a minute. Gentlemen? Fellas, I've heard a lot about this place, Camp Durant, and what happened there. Tell me, what really did happen there?
Well, everything started out well. We got together before going, we practiced, and we got a chance to know each other, found out we had a lot in common. We all hated running before breakfast. Oh yeah, we all hated leg raisers. We were all tired after practice, and everybody thought it was funny that Lynn Stanton would try to sneak off in the woods for a smoke, as if nobody knew. But now Coach Johnson never mentioned anything about race. We all talked about football. We all ate together, ran together, we exercised together, practiced together, no doubt that we were one team. In fact, when I saw some of those black boys play, I thought to myself, we're going to be a better team with them. And I sure am glad they were on our team. There was no doubt we're one team. But now there were some guys from Garner High who thought that in order to be one team, well, we needed to carry on the Garner High tradition. And I couldn't tell you where that tradition began. I mean, it's been old as all. It's a rite of passage, it's a tradition.
It wasn't our tradition. I hated initiation. I hated it then, and I hate it now. It was disgusting. It was not our athletic tradition. Look, I wanted to be a part of the team. I wanted us to be a team. So I allowed them to initiate me. I was madder than a wet hen. I was furious. I don't remember fighting anybody. But I don't remember being as mad. See, I was a senior. And going through this, for what? A tradition?
Well, let me tell you something, my friend. It wasn't much of a tradition to me either. It was painful. It was the worst pain I ever felt in my life. Write that down. It was worse than the shingles. I mean, they came and got me and a couple of the JV boys that got pulled up the year before, and when they performed this tradition on me, the pain was so bad I had to call my mama to come get me.
I remember that.
It was awful.
Well, hey, look, I know it doesn't mean much now, but some of the guys who were involved with that, we're ashamed that we had anything to do with that.
And what is amazing is that no one, no player, no parent, no student ever discussed this tradition with Mr. Bear while he was principal.
I've got the cheerleading results. Neither of the Garner Consolidated girls made the team.
Yes, they did. I'm making an administrative decision. Our cheerleading squad just got a little bit bigger. Here you go.
there's only one senior on the team. Some of the girl cheerleaders from last year didn't make the team this year.
There will be criticism, but it's on me. We have our squad now.
Changing the subject, do you think this building will be ready?
Well, they tell me it'll be touch and go. We've had some delays with the weather and some issues with, sewer and water, but one way or another, we will open on time and in our new building. There is simply no other option.
All right, now we have 5 days till school opens. Where are we?
Well, ma'am, I'm afraid that we're nowhere close to being ready. I've just met with my construction foreman just a little while ago, and he's given me a list of some of the major things, and they're pretty significant. I'll share them with you here. The walls are all up, but some of the rooms still have gravel floors. There's some of the floors that actually are still dirt, and some of the concrete floors, they don't have any tile on them. You got rooms that are unpainted and doors that need to be hung. There's no heat, there's no air conditioning. You've got cardboard boxes stacked all over the hallways. We have whole wings of the building that are months from being ready. Quite frankly, the whole place is just filthy.
Okay, I'm sorry. Are you telling me that the building's not going to be ready by September 3rd?
Well, yes. The best I can figure, the building should be ready the week when the students come back after the Christmas holidays.
School starts in less than a week.
School might try to open in less than a week, but it's definitely not going to be ready.
What about the library?
It's not close.
The cafeteria?
That's just impossible.
What about the classrooms?
Well, I think a few will be ready in a week or so, and maybe some of the offices, but the main entrance, there's no way.
No way?
Ma'am, there's simply no way for school to open in that building next week. Sorry.
Tell Mr. Bear.
Hello. Yes. Well, yes, I understand that, but to spend the first 3 months of the school year in the Garner Consolidated building would be a disaster. Garner Consolidated is simply too small, and for us to change our plans at this point would just be impossible, especially a week before school starts. Plus, we promised this community that we will open on time and in our new building. Wait, no. Delaying for a few weeks or opening at Garner Consolidated would undermine our plans and possibly the hopes this community has for this new school. Yes, I understand, but I must insist, we will open on time and on our new campus. You don't know this community. We'll cancel orientation on Friday, but it's a holiday weekend, and our people will go to work. This community will finish the school if the contractor can't. We'll board up the walls and board up the construction zones, and we'll go to work. Garner will find a way.
Probably no other school was completed quite like Garner was. It was an entire community effort. People showed up to work.
Hello, Mr. Bear.
How are you?
Heard the bad news.
You have bad news?
If he paints that wall over there, it will not be under warranty.
Paint it.
Yes, sir, I was gonna paint it anyway.
What are we doing here?
Here's the tiles.
Thank you.
If she lays that tile, Mr. Bear, there's no way I can warranty it either.
I'm going to find somebody to help you paint, with these tiles, okay?
Well, okay. I will help. I've got a couple of spotlights, and we can work till it gets very late.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Sanders, I think we're going to make it. I think we are. We won't be ready, but we will open. I still can't believe it. I saw 3 of our students, Gary Roberts, Jimmy Lucas, and Jimmy Mullins. They were sweeping the halls. Gary's got an artificial leg, but he's got a little swing in his step. You'll like him when you meet him. I tell you, they had the trash piled so high you'd think we were starting a dump. I seriously don't know who told them to come and how they got here, but they were here.
I mean, probably no other community in the country would open under these conditions, but we are. I'm just so proud of this community. This is really one of Garner's finest moments.
Mr. Bear, I don't know if you know this, but the floor of my classroom is just dirt. I don't mean it's dirty, it's dirt, red clay.
Just for a few weeks or a few months. But don't worry, the carpenter or the contractor is making his way down the hall, paving one room at a time.
Well, where will I be teaching when they pour my floor? Is there another room available?
Unfortunately not. Miss Jenkins is actually teaching English in the AV closet. I'm afraid you'll have to just teach in the hall when it's your week.
In the hall? At least I can sweep the floor.
There you go.
And that's why the classes of 69 and 70 can tell their grandchildren why we are so old and so poor that we went to a school that had dirt floors.
I remember that when the school opened, it opened with plenty of problems. Cold lunches in the library, construction, dirt parking lots, ankle-deep mud when it rained, no front entrance, no air conditioning, no heat, yellow jackets, and we even had a goat herd right out the window. But when the new Garner Senior High opened, it opened without people problems.
Many of the students were apprehensive about integration because they've seen so many difficult situations in other parts of the country. But what I remembered most was how the students respected themselves and the teachers. And when the teachers saw this, it made them excited about teaching us new things we could use in the future.
Oh yeah, I remember those days. Hours and hours of lifelong lessons. You guys remember the slide rule?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I kept mine right there on the side in this pouch, little pouch. I'd whip that bad boy out, slide it a couple times, and every math problem that I ever encountered from that point on, I had it solved. Now that's what I call a lifelong lesson.
There was a building, but there were lots of changes. For the first time, some black students had white teachers, and black teachers had white students. Would respect be an issue? The television was filled with stories of riots, unrest, disharmony. Could these walls be the safe haven that so many good people wanted? Students were scared. They wondered if they would make new friends or just be miserable. And there was talk in the community about Coach Ferris, but J.C. O'Neill quickly silenced that by saying that he understood the decision. Coach Ferris had been at Garner Consolidated longer than he had coached at Garner High.
You know, I've interviewed Coach Ferris several times in my research for this project, and he really wanted to be here to talk to you himself. But he lives in Georgia, and his health is not good enough for him to travel. But there was one special part of an interview that he asked me to play that you could hear.
I have something to tell you that was going on, and I need to get this story right. Something I am not very proud of. I never told anyone this. Mr. Bass said everything was to be done based on merit rather than based on color. Soon after Mr. Bass entrusted the basketball team to me, I decided that since 3/4 of the students were white, a majority of my starters would be white. I decided that at least 3 white players, and I started at least 3 white players in every game. Right now, I wouldn't do that at all. I would start my best team based on ability, not color. But that's not what I decided then. I did it even though it was against everything I believed as a coach. Maybe I shouldn't have done it, but it seemed to be the right thing to do at that time. I feel badly about it, it literally kept me awake for a long, long time. I think about it 50 years later. Craig Leach was my sixth man, but he should have started. I think he played as much as anybody, but he wasn't a starter. I thought that he should have been a starter. He was black, and I didn't start him because he was black. That was wrong. I am ashamed to admit it. If you see Craig Leach, tell him I think about it, and please forgive me for doing it.
You know, I think most of us have some things we wish we had done differently. You know, I do.
Like what?
Well, when we were organizing the junior senior, the same black student was recommended for all the primary jobs: contracting the band, arranging for the food, renting for the facility, the rental of the facility. Each time, the majority voted for another student, each time voting for a white student. Eventually, that young black student, who, by the way, went on to be one of the most beloved of the 1970 graduates, was offered a job for the prom. He was asked to head the cleanup committee. He declined.
Look, don't feel too bad. Not only we were young, but we were naive. I mean, I was not a racist. And I was taught by my grandmother and my mother not to judge people by the color of their skin. But suddenly it dawned on me that there were some black students that were smarter than I was. And I'm talking about a whole lot smarter than I was. So I had all these assumptions about things that were wrong. And what the school did is it helped me get a different perspective on who and what we are.
But you know what I learned? You should write this down. You know what I learned? I could be friends with white people. How you do?
You know, I just remember my senior year being confusing. I came from what I thought was a small school where I knew everyone, a place that was comfortable and secure. And now we were in this place that seemed huge and filled with strangers.
You know, the same was true for us. Here we are in this massive school with all these people we've never seen. And we had so many teachers. We didn't know how they felt about teaching black students.
And there were construction workers everywhere. There was dirt and dust. And you'd walk down the hall and you'd see people you'd never seen before. I remember just wanting the year to be over so I could just get on with my life.
Mr. Bear said that he wanted this school to be a haven from the outside world, a place where children attending there felt safe. But that real world of 1968 was just outside the door. Even with all the things that the students were going through, there seems to have been many things going on that the students weren't aware of. Some of the things were happening just outside the door of that school. There's something else that Mr. Ferris told me during one of our interviews that I'd like you to hear so that I can get your reaction afterwards. It seems that the teachers were experiencing some of their own problems. Integration was new to them too.
I was at a conference athletic meeting before school started, and I saw a group of golf coaches talking. Since I was going to be a golf coach, I walked over, and one of them had his back to me. Just as I walked up, I heard him say, "Did you hear that new Garner High School is going to have a zoo, and they got a bear for a principal and a coon for a coach." Some laughed, some didn't, and I walked away. What else could I do? I could have confronted the man, but that wouldn't accomplish anything. I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I got along great with all the basketball coaches and most of the other golf coaches. But there were some who gave me a difficult time, such as I couldn't go to his place to play golf because I was black. So I sent Coach Johnson in my place. We had a good team. In fact, we won the conference championship in golf that year. So everything turned out okay. That's all.
Mr. Barry, didn't expect to find you here tonight, but I need to talk to you.
Yeah, certainly. Have a seat. I was just following up on the motorcycle that was found parked in the hallway this morning. It belonged to Robbie Cross. He said his classmates must have pushed it in, so we took care of it. Shouldn't be a problem. What can I help you with?
It's the golf team.
Are you having a problem with the players or the parents?
It is worse than that. I've bit my tongue and I've held back, but something must change.
Well, what needs to change?
You know, when we play our away matches, clubs are telling me that I can't get off the bus. Coach Johnson takes my place sometimes, and sometimes I have to sit on the bus and wait. Now, I'm a black man, and no black man can set foot on their sacred ground. Now, I understand that they are a private club, and they can have whoever they want as their members. I don't give a flip who they take as their members. But I am the Garner Senior High School golf coach. I should be able to coach my team.
Well, did something happen in the match today?
Well, we played at Chapel Hill, so I was allowed to coach my team. Now, the boys, they did a good job. We're in first place in the conference, but as we were leaving, next week's host came up to me and said I wouldn't be allowed on the course or in their clubhouse. Now, Mr. Bear, I admit I lost it. This is just too much. I'm a man like you, a man like them and the other members of their country clubs. Now, I don't want to eat a meal and I don't want to join, but I just want to coach my team. Anyway, I told them if I couldn't coach my team, then my team wasn't going to be there. And I probably said some things I shouldn't have said.
I can understand that.
There's another thing.
Go on.
Well, there was a college assistant coach there too. And he came up to me as we were leaving and he put his arm around me, almost like we were good friends. And he said, "Why do you want to act this way?" I lost it, Mr. Bear. Now, you know I don't cuss much, but I cussed that man with every word I knew. Why do I want to act this way? Want to act? I tell you, Mr. Bear, I don't want to act this way. I want things to change. I can't take it. Can you imagine me telling my team, my boys, that I can't coach them because of the color of my skin? I won't do that. This cannot happen again.
This will not happen again. Garner cannot be the only place that sees that this is wrong. Those other schools know the law of the land. We can't live with this. That's what I'm going to remind them tomorrow morning, unless I can get them on the phone tonight. No one should be treated the way you are being treated. I really appreciate you coming to me with this.
The conference had new rules about golf coaches by noon the next day. It was another step.
Now, when you hear about all of those things, what are your feelings?
I remember there were so many mixed emotions that year. A lot of emotions about the merger. All of us, the blacks and whites, though, we wanted to make it work. What I concentrated on was that there was a God in heaven and that he'd given us all morals and values. And so when there were turbulent times, we took to those values. Sure, we knew there was going to be some turbulence, but we concentrated on those morals and values, and it made a difference.
I remember the senior year not exactly as I expected. Oh, I expected to graduate, you know, under those grand chandeliers of Memorial Auditorium. Instead, we graduated Dorton Arena, yes, the old cow barn, yeah. At least they had the decency to sweep the shavings and the droppings, you know. But, you know, I remembered that there was a downpour. It rained during the commencement. I mean, it was a gully washer. And by the time it was done, everybody was just fleeing. No lingered around, and they were headed. No hugs, no farewells. Don't even try to hug me right now. Just, it was over. You know, my senior year was over, and I thought to myself at that time, my school had been taken away from me, and I've been forced to go to this new school. I mean, the sacrifice had been forced upon me. But I look at it now. Oh, my goodness, we had done some great things. We did some amazing things that year. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, something precious was taken from us, but it paved the way to some better things.
Well, there's no ambiguity about how I felt about integration. I made cheerleader in 1968 and 69, along with a girl that I would have never known had we not integrated. Andre Leach was a black girl. She was quiet, a little shy, but she was so much fun to get to know. And I really feel like she's one of those people that set such a great example for us. Andre lost her life to cancer in the mid-90s, but I'll never forget how she made me feel calm when I was around her. And she helped me change my mind about diversity. I can't tell you what an impact she's had on my life.
You know, when I think about it, I always wonder, did we really try hard enough? I mean, think about it. Race relations are a lot better, but they could be much better. And remember, our generation was going to end inequality forever and bring the world together in harmony. Well, guess what? We failed. But I pray that our children will succeed.
Lord knows I hope so.
And you know, I'm encouraged about that. Because I remember when my little girl was growing up, one of her best friends was black. And then one day she came to me and she said, "Daddy, I'm worried about inviting him to my birthday party." I said, "Oh, here we go. I have totally failed as a parent." And I said, "Lisa, why are you so concerned about inviting him to your birthday party? Are you worried about what people might think about you?" She said, "No, Daddy. He's going to be the only boy at the party." And I said, "Hallelujah, there is a God in heaven."
You know, I think the people of Garner changed along with the high school. Because when we first got there, we was introduced to courses that we have never taken at Garner Consolidated. You know, I was determined that my kids were going to go to the finest university. My son now has 2 degrees from Duke University and 1 from Harvard Business School. That's what Interact has done for me and for the community.
I thought the class rings of 1969, I thought that was pretty symbolic. Now, I graduated from Garner Senior High School, not Garner High School, but the class rings had to be ordered during the junior year, and that's before we knew what the mascot would be or if there would even be a mascot at that point. Now, we graduated Trojans. My class ring said Rams, and that's the kind of the way a lot of us felt. We just felt like we were right in the middle of it.
Well, I can tell you this. Graduating from an integrated high school is probably the best thing that ever happened to me. It is unbelievable how it prepared me for my life. I mean, we were knocking walls down and we were making this a better place for everyone to live in. And then think about the role models we had. The role models, Mr. Bear, Mr. Sanders, the 2 guidance counselors, Mrs. Toole and Mrs. Knox. And who is ever going to forget the famous Coach James Ferris, who very rarely cussed? And then Mrs. Yarborough, who taught everybody how to type. Remember typewriting? And then our beloved Mrs. Joanne Watkins. Just a wonderful experience.
You know, I think Mr. Bear deserves all the credit that he receives. I heard an author say, if there were 100,000 Wayne Bears as principals across this country, integration would be totally different. But the unsung heroes are the students.
That's right. That's right.
Now, all the adults, they can do all the planning, all the leading, all the implementing. But it was the students who made it work. That's right. We made some mistakes. Some mistakes in hindsight are painful than others. But 1968 was a turbulent year. Garner's first year, Garner Senior High School first year. No ambulance was ever called and no police was ever summoned.
That's right. That's right. You know, the students did their part, but I guarantee you, if you were to take a survey of the faculty and the students that were in that school, I think they would say it was the community. The community was the real hero. I mean, think about, we had the community leaders, we had our pastors, we had our teachers, we had all the people in this community deciding to do the right thing.
One thing that Mr. Bear had that a lot of principals didn't have, and that was the community support. Principals across this country were scared to find out what they would do to their neighborhood. But to Garner's last call, they decided to embrace the humanity for this community not to fail.
This community, which refused to be distracted by the events of this world.
This community that chose love over hate.
This community, which chose to reach for the future instead of longing for the past.
This community that decided to build a school for everyone.
The opening of Garner Senior may have been Garner's finest moment, and much of that building is being rebuilt. But the roots, the love, and the hope that that building represents still remains.
The first graduating class of Garner Senior High School, which chose the impossible dream as our school song. And that dream is still alive today. You see, in 1968, this community decided to embark upon that journey, and 50 years later, we're still on that journey. Our merger, it wasn't perfect. Still isn't perfect. But somehow, and some way, this community made that school a haven for all of us. And we, that's a collective we. Oh, we are in this together. We had to make it work. Or we will make this work. Because this is our home.
Amazing grace, how sweet